Good afternoon, everyone. This is Old School from What the Buck, reporting to you live from What the Buck Studios in Valrico, Florida. I heard this week that someone compared us to Wayne's World, which is astonishing. We are definitely geeks, and we love the Buccaneers, and that's why we do what we do, but hopefully you guys actually enjoy it, and like some of the things that we bring to you, we hope that we differentiate ourselves a little bit. Reminder, our live shows are Mondays and Thursday nights at 7 o'clock at www.whatthebuck.net. I've been trying to upload a couple of those broadcasts to our YouTube channel, but the size of the broadcast is too large and YouTube keeps rejecting it. So I wanted to throw a couple of things out that we discussed in our Thursday show for the folks who check out our YouTube channel but haven't made it over to our core channel. Obviously, we have another preseason game this week. We have our first home game at Raymond James. There's been some scuttlebutt around town that we may get a blackout because people are not interested in going to preseason football through some combination of the economy being down, ticket prices being up, and the fact that the games really don't mean anything since it's just preseason. You're going to get starters maybe for 1 or 2 series, and then you're going to see a bunch of guys that will probably not make the team. I'm one of the sick people. I called in this week to 1010 again and talked to JP that if they open the stadium at like 8 a.m. For an 8 p.m. game, I would probably be there at about 8:01. It is a sort of church for me, which is a little bit pathetic. But the fact of the matter is we're playing the 18-1 Patriots, who are still sort of the consensus #1 team in the league, despite the fact that they weren't able to beat the Giants in the Super Bowl last year. We do get to see Tom Brady, Randy Moss, Wes Welker, all those guys come to town. Bill Belichick will show up. I'm sure there'll be plenty of cameras available, and I know that is a tired joke, but as long as they continue to cheat, we will continue to make fun of them for it. If you do have a chance to get out to the stadium, I would encourage it. I suspect you'll be able to pick up tickets pretty cheap since not many people want to go to the game. It'd be a great opportunity to go to Raymond James if you haven't been there. The game is 8 o'clock on Sunday night. I know that this is the beginning of school for Hillsborough County, so it'll be tough for some people to get out there. But we will be out there in full effect. We will not be tailgating simply because of the evening schedule, but we will be taking in the game. There's a couple of things we wanted to cover, and we covered them on the show this week that I wanted to bring out. Some of the information we want to do, and I'm going to throw it up here on a graphic. The keys to the game for us is, will the real number 2 please step up? Last week we saw Brian Griese and Luke McCown duel it out a little bit. If Michael Clayton hadn't dropped that wide open pass he had, the stats would have been far closer, and we probably wouldn't be having the discussion despite the fact that Griese drove the team down for a touchdown. Luke performed fairly well. But realistically, Luke's got to fight Griese off. Gruden clearly likes having that veteran quarterback. Griese has been efficient when he's actually in the game as opposed to how he's been practicing in training camp. And so I think Griese's probably got a little bit of an advantage coming in here. Latest word out of Pewter Report and Jim Flynn is that Griese is getting the nod to start. Will be the #1 quarterback in rather than Luke McCown. I wouldn't take that to mean too much necessarily, but it certainly does represent a change from the first game. I know that in the conversation we had on the air the other day, many of us are big fans of Luke McCown. We think he's young, got a ton of upside, gives you the mobility, the ability to extend the play. Also a very strong arm, a deceptively strong arm, in fact, compared to everyone else on the roster, with the exception notably of Chris Sims when he's throwing the ball in a healthy fashion. So these final 3 games of preseason are going to be critical for Luke McCown and his future with the Buccaneers because we may need to protect Josh Johnson from other teams. We may not be able to just toss him onto the practice squad and not lose him. I did get some requests for information on number 11 from another team in the NFC South this week, which means that he's already being scouted, which is fairly interesting. The number 2 key to the game is about our offensive line. Are they going to ever be able to truly pass protect? Now, at the beginning of the Miami Dolphins game, they looked pretty suspect. They seemed to tighten up a little bit. But the reality is our offensive line, as talented as they are, do a great job of run blocking but have fallen down in pass protection, forced the offensive scheme to adjust, keep a tight end in, or have a back chip, and that reduces the number of receivers we can have downfield, eligible receivers to be targets, and that hurts our offense. So we need that front 5, whoever they are, and I suspect you'll see our normal starters, sans Luke Pettigrew, who's still on the PUP list, playing. You should see a fair amount of Jeremy Zuda, the young rookie who's played very, very well. Anthony Davis is probably fighting for a spot because of the way Zuda's playing. Dennis Rowland looks like he may be odd man out, and Chris Denman as well. Dan Benning's been playing well. We'll see what those guys can do and if they can actually create this thing that I've read about, which is called the pocket that a quarterback's supposed to pass out of. The third topic that we discussed is our no-name receiving crew. We need a receiver to actually step up. Joey Galloway is still not playing. John Gruden's obviously getting a little bit irritated with that. You need your #1 guys in there. Both Garcia and Galloway need to be in there getting some timing. But the reality is, you're not just going to field a single receiver. We need to have some other guys who can be very reliable, can step up, can catch the ball, and make some yardage. Mike Clayton had another key drop last week. We're hoping he can turn that around. Apparently, in practice this week, he had a key drop again. Coach Mann said that this is, these demons that he's got to clear from his head. It's clearly a mental thing. A lot of us are pulling for Mike. We hope he can pull that out. He's got a lot of physical ability. But we'll see. It's a contract year. I don't think we're going to see Mike Clayton drop from the roster. But this could be the last year in Tampa for him unless he has a phenomenal year. And even if he does, to be quite honest, if he has a phenomenal year and the Bucs want to re-sign him, he may say the hell with it because of the beating he's taken here, and rightfully so. He really doesn't have any sort of moral high ground to stand on there. Those are some of the keys to the game for us. There are a couple of other things we want to talk about. Every Thursday night on What the Buck, we do our predictions. D. Sanchez and I, and then if the doctor's in the studio, the doctor will do it as well. We try and put on our prognostication hats, and I want to go ahead and warn you guys, I am a notorious homer. I do try and be objective when I evaluate the team, but when it comes to picking the victory, I will never pick against the Bucs. It is a pathetic but true statement that in that regard I am a complete homer, which is why I lose in every pool I ever participate in. I am also a homer when it comes to fantasy football, which is also why I lose at fantasy football constantly, because I will never pick a player that plays for another NFC South team, and I will never play a player who's playing the Bucs defense. So that's a little bit sad, but I feel better now that I've shared it with you for some reason. So our predictions this week, however, I have gone on record as predicting the Bucs for a victory 23-13. Obviously, the victories in preseason are not that interesting. You'd like to win, but you're really more interested in trying to get some evaluations. We also do a predictive offensive and defensive MVP before our Monday show, where we do what are called our Skulls and Swords, which is a play on the logo name, which are essentially our MVP of the game and our bonehead of the game. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that Maurice Stovall is going to cement himself in that number 2 role. He had a good game last week. I think he's going to get a few more looks this week because of what Clayton's apparently done in practice or not done, and I think he's going to get the chance to step up, and I think Maurice is ready to do so. He's a good kid, and I think he's got all the talent in the world, and God knows he's got the work ethic for it. We saw that at training camp. Rumor out of training camp and out of practice was Greg White apparently realized that there's some other defensive linemen on this team who have no intention of getting cut. Wilkerson and Douglas and Ryan Sims is playing now. Obviously, Ryan Sims isn't the competitor for Greg White's slot, but there are a lot of guys out there that are straight running their butts off trying to get this stuff done. Greg White, the quote we heard out of camp was he spent more time in the backfield than the running backs. I think Greg White's going to remind people why. He was one of the biggest defensive surprises last year and someone who probably deserves a better contract than he's got. So I expect Greg White to have a big game and remind people of that. My partner, D. Sanchez, who is not here to record this, went on record as saying Bucs win 17-13. He's going to say Matt Bryant's going to rebound from his horrendous night against the Dolphins and show that he is a premier kicker in the league. And he went on record and he used the incredibly long and obnoxious first name. Not to say that the name's bad, Savvy, if you're listening. But the broadcasters did say Sabatino Piscatelli, which was exceedingly annoying. But he's going to say Sabatino Piscatelli is going to be the defensive MVP, hopefully with some big hits on some of those receivers for the Patriots. Those are our predictions. Again, if you want to hear the recap of the actual Patriots game, we will be live Monday night at www.whatthebuck.net. Please tune in if you get a chance. Get over there, register on the website. Doesn't cost anything. Nothing we do does. We'd love to have you over for our live broadcast. It is a interactive multimedia experience, sort of like a TV show, only with none of the incredibly cool technology. We do have a live chat room. You can participate with other rabid Bucs fans and actually non-Bucs fans. In fact, we've got Panthers fans, Raiders fans, Cowboys fans, people from all different teams come over to talk about football from a fan's perspective. So thanks for listening, and we will see you on Monday. Go Bucs.